So we're continuing on, chapter 13 this time. Give me nutrition or give me death. I wonder what this chapter is going to be like. If you've ever lived in communist Russia in the 1960s, you would have been taught that everything about the Western culture was bad and evil. The West was painted as a detrimental, immoral, hedonistic place filled with self-serving people, all looking out for only themselves. Just as this stilted 20th century communist view of the West was completely wrong, the current allopathic view of nutrition we've all grown up with is completely wrong. And I mean completely wrong. I'm sure Pete will now tell us how the fact that, there aren't these things called nutritionists that, are on the NHS. Because we have nutritionists on the NHS, and nutritionists are a thing in medical, circles. It is a full profession. This is a thing that does exist. Pete seems to ignore this, but, when you hear the word nutrition, you probably think of a boring high school class that taught you about the 4 food groups. Nutrition is held in our collective consciousness as the poor stepchild that nobody wants to take care of, and that everybody feels guilty about not paying attention to. It is probably important, we think, to ourselves, because we wrongly assume that it is something to do with soybeans and vegetarianism, when we don't want to investigate it, right? Certainly we assume that nutrition has nothing to do with the appearance and disappearance of disease. No, because nutrition has nothing to do with the appearance or disappearance of disease, unless you are eating continuously on a day-to-day basis a completely, one-sided diet. Then yes, you are going to end up with unhealthy and end up with health problems. But if you do eat healthy, then congratulations. It's not hard to do. It really isn't. After all, most chronic disease is genetic, isn't it? Also, again, with this thing with chronic disease is genetic. A lot of chronic diseases are genetic, some aren't. Sometimes you get them. He's going to go on about osteoporosis in a bit. Where are we? Also, since our MDs don't talk about nutrition much, we just assume that it's of minor importance. They probably don't, because, as we've stated before, there's very little nutritional wise that is going to actually affect you. I had a friend recently who had a massive problem because he hadn't been taking, enough potassium in his diet. So now his doctor literally said to him, you just basically have to eat a banana a day. Problem solved. Does Pete acknowledge this, that, that was a treatment given to him by a doctor? No, of course he's not going to acknowledge that. Where were we? Besides, if a nutritionist is going to tell me that I have to stop eating meat, well, you can just forget it, because the only way you can stop me from eating meat is to pry the steak away from my cold, dead hands. Well, I have some earth-shattering news for you. Meat is good for you. Olive oil, wheat, barley, rye, oats are bad for you, and the only thing more important than nutrition is breathing. Proper nutrition is the key to health and longevity. It is the magic bullet that eliminates most chronic diseases, and is the absolute unimpeachable king of all medical treatments. No. Lots of stuff, if you have a good diet, you will avoid. However, you will end up with some chronic disease. It's just part of aging. Again, osteoporosis. It was basically because your bones are getting weaker and your body can't, produce the necessary cells enough, and you'll have to make sure that you're having enough calcium. Now, Pete goes on and says, oh, I've cured people of their osteoporosis by giving them calcium. No, you haven't cured them, Pete, by just magically giving them calcium. They still have osteoporosis, something which he'll go on about later in this chapter. Nothing else comes close to being able to produce the healing effects when applied properly clinical nutrition does. If it does allow by law to deliver one type of medicine, it should be clinical nutrition. Are you catching my drift here? Let me just say that one more time for emphasis. Most everything you know about nutrition is wrong, and the key to health and long life is nutrition. Your MD is completely clueless about nutrition, which leads to the inevitable conclusion that MDs are completely incapable of helping you eliminate chronic disease. But nutrition is very often not linked to chronic disease. You know, he's going to go on and try and prove that basically it's linked to a lack of a certain supplement. Your nutrition, if you have a perfect diet from the time you are raised until you are 60, but you will end up with some sort of chronic disease, not because of your diet or because you lack some sort of nutrition. It is because of your body's aging. It is getting older, and you might have a history of this problem of osteoporosis in your family. My family has a problem with heart disease. You know, my two uncles are, you know, they're getting checked up every so often because it's very likely they will end up with the same thing. It's very likely I will end up with the same thing. You know, but that is medical knowledge. That is something that is made up of genetics and genes, something which he is not willing to admit is a thing. As far as he is concerned, and has basically stated flat out, this is a complete lie by doctors because they don't know what's happening. That is what he said in like the second or third chapter. And that is just completely out flat wrong. So we'll continue. So from 1971 to 1983, my colleague Joe Walsh was in charge of a $25 million research project that was funded by the National Institute of Health of Washington University, the Yerkes, I think that's how you say it, Primate Research Institute Center, the Center for Biological and Natural Systems, and the major zoos across the US. The project was designed to assess the negative effects of pollution on healthy animals. This was in response to a horrible health epidemic that had occurred in a small fishing village in Minnesota in the southwestern Minamata, not Minnesota, in the southwestern Japan. An industrial plant upstream of Minamata village dumped tons of mercury into the river that fed into Minamata Bay. As fate would have it, the mercury reached the bay at the same time that the algal and small organism on the bottom of the food chain living in the bay were in bloom. The algae sucked up the mercury, the minnows ate the algae, the medium-sized fish ate the minnows, the bigger fish ate the bigger fish, blah blah blah. The fishermen caught the fish and brought them to market, and every day and everybody in the village ate them. Shortly thereafter they got sick. Many villagers died, and 9 months later all the children born had horrible birth defects. The National Geographic magazine devoted an entire issue to this event. It didn't take long for scientists to discover that the entire Minamata epidemic had been caused by mercury poisoning. This realization sent shockwaves through the scientific community, and their reasoning went like this. If mercury exposure to adults could cause such massive pain, suffering and death, and if mercury exposure in the utero could cause such horrible birth defects, then what other bad things could other pollutants do to our health? Pretty smart thinking if you ask me. Oh, so he's willing to admit there that scientists, do some good things, but, all the other time, oh, they're bad. Also, I want to just point out the fact that this guy prescribes mercury to people. Prescribes, I want to make that fact point. This guy has just said, and he agrees with the fact that this place had been polluted by mercury and that the result, these adults had mercury poisoning. Yet this guy prescribes to people mercury. Just let that sink in. So they opened a textbook perfect experiment to figure it all out. They compared the health of zoo animals living in urban environments, the same types of pollutants that humans were, to the health of their counterparts living in the wild. Walsh was in charge of the whole shebang. 12 years, 260 of species and 10 million blood chemistries and microscopic studies later, Walsh completed these studies and the results were published in a book called The Diseases of Exotic Animals, which is now in the Smithsonian Institute. The results of the research were startling and groundbreaking, and undoubtedly this was the first time you've heard of them. The results of Walsh's research were completely unexpected. As it turned out, the total net negative results of urban population on the health of zoo animals was negligible. Population was more or less irrelevant in this ability to produce serious physical problems. The only time that pollution did affect the health of animals was when there was a massive exposure to it, as there had been in Miniata. This was often the case with science. Most major breakthroughs happened by accident. Walsh's research was no exception. Of course, looking for the negative effects of pollution on the health of animals, the research inadvertently stumbled upon something huge that could have changed the course of medicine forever. The unexpected discovery: there were enormous health problems created by nutritional deficiencies in the animals that were studied, and the effects played out across species lines. It didn't matter if it was a bat, buffalo, bear or baboon, there was a nutrition deficiency and the animal developed disease. First things first, that wasn't the case of the study. The case of the study was to examine the effects of pollution upon animals. It wasn't, let me get this straight, it wasn't to affect this, what you said was this mysterious outcome. Now, did they actually do research into this, the mineral deficiencies? And remember, what I think he's going to get to is that he was trying to cause massive mineral deficiencies in animals, which basically wouldn't exist if they were acting, normally in the wild. If there was a nutrition deficiency, the animal developed a disease. Furthermore, that disease would disappear when the missing nutrient was replaced. These discoveries revolutionized veterinary medicine. Instead of feeding monkeys in urban zoos bananas, they now got monkey chow, which was a mixture of all the nutrients that the monkeys needed to be healthy. Guess what happened? No more birth defects, no more sick monkeys, no more mating problems, and life expectancy rose dramatically across species lines. Again, you can't... causation does not equal correlation. Or sorry, correlation does not equal causation, right? And again, where I haven't looked this up at all, but you're basically saying, and I want to make this clear, humans are not the same as monkeys. There are similarities, but they are not the same. They are not the same as bats, buffaloes, bears or baboons. We are not the same, chemically we are all different, so things affect us differently. Animals have diseases that humans don't even develop. But of course, you're probably thinking to yourself, if nutritional deficiencies negatively affect the health of animals across species lines, then the same thing must happen in humans. Correct, you are paying attention. So was Walsh. After this discovery, he went to a naturopathic medical school, secured his license to practice neuropathic medicine, and started applying with humans the naturopathic treatments he had discovered for animals. Why didn't he become an MD? It's a valid question. Something which, is actual trained. And as we know in the past, as has been shown through many videos I have done, MDs are nowhere near the medical trained standard that an MD is trained to. You know, we are talking about the people who believe that to cure a heart attack, you just do that and channel your positive energy into them. And they wonder why they're called quacks. The philosophy is simple. Medical nutrition proficiencies professes the following. The human body requires 90 essential nutrients to function properly. It is impossible to get all these 90 nutrients from our food with the passage of time unless nutritional here it is. Here's the con. Unless the nutritional supplements are added into the diet, the body will develop nutritional deficiencies. When the nutritional deficiencies get big enough, something breaks and the disease is born. If deficiency nutrients are put back into the body before the disease ensues, the disease reaches the point of no return, the body will repair itself and eliminate the disease. So basically, what Walsh came up with was an incredible money-making idea. Convince people that they are not in their normal diets going to receive their 90 magical supplements they are going to receive, and instead, what you need to take all these massive lines of supplements. And I want to make something clear. It has been shown time and time again in scientific studies, taking supplements does nothing for you. The body filters them out. The body, if you have a normal, normal diet, and balanced diet, you'll be fine. Your body will cope, and it will be perfectly fine. You can survive without all these massive supplements, because if you start taking these supplements, your body will just get rid of them. Because, and there is such a thing as too much of these types of supplements. It has happened. For example, the video I did a couple of weeks ago about the young autistic boy who got sent to hospital because he had taken too much calcium, because the naturopath had prescribed to him that he should take these calcium supplements because it will cure his autism. Oh look, too much calcium, he ended up in hospital. Does Gideon here and Pete and Walsh want to admit that things like that can happen? No, of course not. It threatens their money-making operation. So that wasn't hard, was it? It may interest you to know that MDs are completely clueless about this. Here's the breakdown of the education MDs versus that of NDs. The numbers inside this box are represented in the number of the credit hours of study that are required for each subject. Prepare to be surprised. Atomy, sorry. Okay, this is wrong. Absolutely wrong, because these numbers are made up. He's claiming that NDs spent 95 hours in the course of their training on atomy. That is false. Just go look at Marie Britt Holmes on her website, and yeah, MDs receive more training than this. I'm sorry, but they do. This where has he got these numbers? That's a fair point. Is there a no? So as far as I'm concerned, he's made these numbers up. There's no chart or anything like that. Yeah, oh, that's hilarious. According to this, what he's said here, NDs in biochem have 12 hours for in that subject, where MDs have 8. That's just ridiculous. And he says MDs have no training in nutrition at all. I'm sorry, but NDs do have training in nutrition. That's a complete lie. The first 4 subjects reflect the training in the first 2 years of study. The nutritional credit hours are over the entire 4-year education. How much education in nutrition did an MD get? None. How much more hours of basic sciences did the ND get? 19.5. How many licensed NDs are there in the US? Okay, so you've made up numbers you don't know where you got them from, numbers that certainly about the ND we know are false. Marie Britt Holmes has said that, NDs only get about 3 hours worth of training in their entire course in biochemical. I'm sorry, but I'm more inclined to believe her than Pete, who seems to have grabbed these numbers out of nowhere, and he hasn't given anywhere to cite these hours. I'm sorry, but that's completely false. He's lying outright there, completely. Your MD may be the nicest person alive. He may be a member of Rotary. She may give free physicals to poor families or volunteer to feed the homeless. No matter how good or kind or decent a person your MD may be, he is completely clueless about nutrition and therefore completely unable to help you regain your health. Why? Because the majority of chronic illnesses are caused by nutritional deficiencies. No, they are not. You have no scientific evidence whatsoever to back that up. Here is a short list of 10 nutritions created by simple calcium deficiency. Calcium is one of the 91 essential nutrients that the body needs to have. High blood pressure, arthritis, osteoporosis, low back pain, PMS, Walsh's vertigo, did he make that up? Tinnitus, kidney stones, Bell's palsy, and no idea how you say that. You were with me right until now, weren't you? In every lecture I gave over 60 free lectures a year. Each time I reveal the list above, audience starts to get antsy. The complaints go something like this. Do you mean to tell me, Dr. Gideon, that all I need to do to get over my osteoporosis was to take a calcium supplement, which is what MDs give as a treatment for osteoporosis? Are you crazy or something? Well, I've got news for you, mister. Naturopath, I did take calcium supplement, but my osteoporosis got worse. The calcium levels in my blood were high when my osteoporosis was diagnosed. Because it's the degenerative, your bones are getting weaker. That's why. So even if, again, as they recommend, doctors, real MDs, recommend calcium supplements to help you out, it is not going to cure you, because there is deeper things going on in osteoporosis than this guy is willing to admit, and MDs will, because again there have been deep studies in this. Go look upon PubMed, or actually read a proper scientific medical book, or go ask a doctor, they'll tell you. Of course, again, remember, this guy's not a doctor, and this book is just one complete scam to get you to buy more supplements. Because remember, he's just said that there were 90, and all of a sudden there were 91. Well, guess what? How many supplements at $10? Think about that. 90 supplements at $10 a month. That's a lot of money that you are taking and that he's gaining from you. I put other things, not including probably the treatment plan and God knows what else he might be charging for. And people look at me and say, oh, these guys make no money. Don't be daft. If you haven't just caught on to what the con literally is on this page, he's just laid out, then there you go. Cultural myths never go away easily. It's not a cultural myth. it's scientific fact. The medical cultural myths are very stubborn little critters. Like cockroaches, however, they always run away from the light. No, they don't. Consider the next chapter, my high intensity megawatt spotlight. So that's the end of that chapter, and oh my god. Basically, in that chapter, that is the expose of what I've been telling people for ages. These guys will sell you supplements because there is something wrong, and because if they sell you a supplement, if something does go wrong, well, you can't sue them. After all, it was a supplement. And of course, if you take too much, and you know that causes problems, and it will cause problems, as I just, previously just said, not their fault. And that's how people like Pete get away with it. And the only way, we stop people like Pete, or stop people going to Pete, or raise the red flags and make people think, hang on, is that guy on the up and up, is we do videos like this, and we expose Pete for what he is, a quack. So that was chapter 13. Chapter 14, medical myth busting. Woo! Look forward to that.